Let's talk now about how not only this issue but a whole bunch of things that are now in the mix are going to affect the election prospects of the major parties. Barnaby Joyce on Q&A identified one of the problems that he thinks the coalition might be facing.
The world hasn't changed that much. No one likes to see you, beating up on a chick. It's an ugly look. But it's the truth. And if you do that, you'll get marked down.
So, and look, there's already evidence of that they're kind of uncomfortable about the whole situation, about the arrangement, particularly Tony Abbott.
Well, the Gillard's not playing the chick card.
No, they are.
But it's true.
She's tougher than half of them.
She's got it beautifully, because they are uncomfortable with it. Every male politician knows it's a very hard thing to go in hard against a female politician. And Abbott is a gentleman on top of that, so it's doubly hard for him. And he kind of likes her. But Gillard, on the other hand, shows no inhibition. She is one of the toughest, most razor-sharp tongued people in Parliament. She's got it made. I mean, I think it's just...
If she were a bloke, that game on handshake she did with Abbott, the first question time after the leadership spill, and there's a sort of, she went over to shake hands as you walked in for question time. If that was a bloke that said game on, it would have been probably a lot.
The bloke would have said game over.
Yeah, or whatever. No, she's tough. She's not looking for chick points, but...
well, he can't say, I'm going to do you slowly, because...
But nevertheless, the nature of how she got there is an issue. You heard it with Martin Ferguson again this morning. Maxine McHugh has had something to say about it, but... Martin Ferguson wasn't particularly enamoured to the power brokers who brought it about. So there's a little bit of a shine going off it.
And in the electorate generally.
Yeah, and the coalition has tried to exploit this. They've put out a bit of a cheapy ad in a bit of a hurry. I have my doubts as to whether it'll ever see the light of day on free-to-air television, but here it is. Here's part of it.
This is a story about the Prime Minister of Australia. Together they came up with lots of stuff-ups and wasted lots of money. Julia Gillard is now Prime Minister and Wayne Swan is her deputy. So the moral of the story is, if you keep wasting money and stuffing things up, you could be a Labor Prime Minister too. For a while anyway.
And it's all about those evil puppet masters, Malcolm.
That's right.
Evil.
Yeah. Well, look, it was a crass and crude mistake by the AWU to start boasting from Wednesday night about how they'd marshalled the forces against Kevin Rudd. A, it wasn't strictly accurate. B, it made out that Julia Gillard was part of the AWU patronage in Parliament, which damaged her, and they were supposed to be working for her. But the simple fact is that there was Bill Shorten, there was Mark Arbib, there were elements of the AWU and the shoppies from South Australia that worked against her, and people didn't like it because it looked brutish.
It's interesting. They took a calculated risk, the AWU, in doing that. I agree with you completely. It branded this as outside factional heavies deposing the elected Prime Minister. Very ugly look. But their argument would be, or is, that on the night, it was not even a sure thing that Julia Gillard would challenge. And that if she did, that people would realise this is a new dawn. And it was in part to put pressure, I think, on her as much as everyone else. So they did it.
Yeah, and look, whoever engineered it, clearly the numbers suggested that the sentiment was overwhelming.
It was a bushfire.
It wasn't just a half a dozen.
But days before, people were saying, days before, seasoned political journalists like Malcolm here were saying there was no appetite for change. Well, in fact, once it was suggested to them, and once there was this idea that it was a force like the AWU
the numbers were there, but they didn't have the candidate, even as late as 8 o'clock on the Wednesday night.
And you've got to have a candidate.
That's what the AWU did.
You can't put an empty chair out there. What they did, which was... well, no,
they didn't. The AWU had a meeting on the Wednesday in the middle of the day where they actually re-endorsed Rudd's leadership. They had no idea till about 6 o'clock that night.
It wasn't till, in effect, it was underway.
And then they changed.
And then you see Bill Ludwig come out and quit. I mean, why? What was the purpose of that? It just added to the the British nature
at the end of the day, that spill was started by people who may have been factional bosses or had union affiliations, but they're actually members of the caucus. Whereas Mark Arbib or Bill Shorten or Don Farrell or David Feeney, I mean, they may be heavyweights, but they're actually members of the caucus too. So it was a caucus-led putsch, if you like.
I don't think this ad is going to hurt, or this sentiment is going to hurt Julia Gillard much, really. I mean, it must be out there, must be coming up in the focus groups, or the Liberals wouldn't have done that, I presume. I think the people it really will hurt is Bill Shorten. I don't think people like him are... You know, Julia Gillard, well, you heard it also from Martin Ferguson, are saying we don't want to seem beholden.
We don't think she owe is those people anything.
In fact, I think we owe them nothing.
We owe them nothing. But let's go back to Julia Gillard's history on this has been she's always been loyal to the leader of the day, and she doesn't like the kind of destabilisation that's gone on in the past. And I think that's absolutely genuine. Let's hear from her from Australian Story 2006.
The thing I regret from that period is it's not whether or not Mark Latham should have been leader, it's where Labor could have been if we hadn't had the culture of destabilisation and if Simon had been allowed to have his best go.
So she's saying you don't get rid of a leader for the tacky excuse of winning an election. I suppose you could argue in this case the destabilisation, certainly from her point of view, didn't happen, and in the end she justified it by saying the government had gone off the rails.
Well, it had. I mean, it had got off the rails.
That's what the focus group stuff showed.
And also, I don't understand why you would show loyalty to a leader who's taken you off the cliff. Labor's done that before, in 1976. You know, they're stuck loyal to Gough Whitlam. Now, what good does that do?
Liberals did it in 2007.
Yeah, well, you know, what's the point? You owe a deeper loyalty to the people that want to vote Labor. And in this case, they got rid of a bloke that was leading the government absolutely astray. And I think that's fair enough. I don't understand what the fuss is about.
How do you think she handled the reshuffle? It was minimal and
only way she could.
Seemed fairly tidy.
Yeah, just tell Kevin just to chill out for a couple of months. There'll be an election if we win you back in. Just take a break.
You think he will be?
Well, if he wants to, he'll have to be. I mean, she's fairly emphatic. You know,
but Phil, when you read what we do now, now that all the brave people are coming out to bayonet the corpse, about his method of leadership and the dysfunction and the arrogance and the sheer nastiness and the incompetence of the bloke. Yeah, you really want him to be in charge of any portfolio?
Not what I want. It's
a rhetorical question.
What do you think is best? What do you think is best for the government? I mean, it seems to me that could be a real destabilising factor.
Can he be that bad? I mean, it's like Attila the Hun, the poor bloke. I mean, the way they've weighed into him since he's lost. I mean, I had a few sort of private moments with Rudd. I always found him quite pleasant. Obviously, I missed all of it. But
it's obviously a deeply personal element towards this.
This whole thing was
in all this. I mean, and not just a difference over policy or the selling of policy. There was something intrinsically personal in his relationship with his colleagues.
Of course there was.
Well, and I think, given all that, I think it's a... But I think she had no option. Gillard had no option but to say after the election, blah, blah, blah. But by crikey, they'll be looking at some way to offer him something to go somewhere. Just leave.
She might have been just a little too emphatic in the way that she put it.